Memphis.
I ain't never been here and it was cold.
You know what I'm saying?
What's going on, everybody? It's Michael. Welcome to another episode of Service Late Life. I'm here today with Mayke founder, Ed Williams. Mr. Williams, thank you very much for coming out.
Hey,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you for having me.
No doubt.
Appreciate
no doubt.
you.
So, we're going to jump right into this. So, you are the founder of the comics that were formerly known as ArcLight Comics. Okay, so I always wondered what caused you to change from ArcLight Comics to Mayke?
So that was a decision made on two things. One, we needed to be able to protect our name, and we couldn't at the time because ArcLight was used up in ArcLight Entertainment, ArcLight Studios, ArcLight Media. All those things were taken. And the name became more of a liability than it did an asset. And then came the fact that we were growing and becoming more than like a comic book publisher. So we were getting into being what is called a transmedia studio. And a transmedia studio is a studio that develops intellectual property for multiple platforms. So video games, TV, comics, film, the whole shebang. And then telling those stories throughout the different platforms. Very much so like the Matrix universe, the MCU, and things like that. So we needed a name that was going to be both protectable and allow us to remove ourselves from just being a comic book publisher. So that was the decision. And the name is a lot more playful and it's a lot more actionable. Okay. You know, from ArcLight Comics to Mayke. You know, we make games and we make comics and we make characters and make stories, and you know, there's a lot of fun. You can do a lot of things with this. So it was definitely time to go in that direction.
I can definitely understand that because like, I was always following ArcLight and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it was. Who was this? Change the logo, change the name, just change everything. So I was definitely like, yeah, about that. So okay, that makes perfect sense. So you're trying to branch out and do a lot of different other things, but let's start from the beginning. Tell us about your comics.
So the comics came from this need for representation.
Okay.
And this desire to put people of color, women of color, LGBTQIA+, and persons with disability, make us more visible in media and entertainment. And we really wanted to pool the voices and the cultures and experience from those demographics and introduce pop culture to new mythologies and new stories and new characters and just give a really good fresh take on this superhero genre.
Okay. Yeah. So I definitely absolutely agree that representation is so important because you know it's like you had I read the quote that you had before. It was like, you know, you want to be Batman, but they would let you because you're black. So being able to do something like this and see people that look like you, I can definitely see the appeal. You know, I'm waiting to go ahead and get some comics. You know, I got nieces and nephews. Like, hey, here, read this. This is what we can do. So I can definitely understand, you know, representation. But speaking of representation, I've noticed when I was doing research, there's an uncanny resemblance between, you know, some of your staff and some of your characters.
Absolutely.
So I'm guessing by your smile that was not an accident.
No.
So how did that come out?
You know, I think it's both a conscious effort and a subconscious one. Because a lot of ourselves are put into these characters and their stories, so it just so happens that they start looking like this all of a sudden.
All of a sudden, it's happening.
Yeah, just, you know, whatever. But yeah, man, it's you know, we got that recently. We went to BlurCon in Crystal City, Virginia, right? And a lot of people were like, that's you.
Yeah. I know when I was researching, I was like, no, I'm looking for Ed Williams, not Trimmer.
Yeah.
Wait, why does it keep coming up with this guy?
Right.
So yeah, that kind of got me. I was like, that's kind of slick. Yeah, that's kind of slick. So do you think that plays into how you guys develop the characters? Like you put your own experiences in whatnot?
Absolutely. We have this whole, I guess, cultural manifesto or whatever, that's these are more than the characters to us. These are actually like human beings. We put so much of ourselves emotionally, spiritually, mentally, all that stuff into these characters that they just really start to come alive off the pages. So, like I said, it just so happens that they start looking like us. It's just, you know, I don't know if they actually start out that way, but I mean, as you see, they just do like this transformation, and they just start appearing like, you know, the creator. So it's interesting because I think everybody has, well, mostly everybody has always wanted to be a superhero, and see themselves save the day. And the fact that we use people of color, women of color, LGBT, and persons with disabilities is so important, because what that does is representation as a whole. It allows us to dream bigger, do bigger. We're able to see the possibilities, to see ourselves becoming more than what we've been told we could become. And that was my issue when I was little, you know, not able to see us anything other than sidekicks or villains. It was like, well, what other possibilities are out there for me, you know? And it wasn't until the Black Power Ranger came out, and it wasn't until I ran into Milestone Media with Static and Icon and Rocket that I was able to see I could save the day, or I can write comics too. You know, I needed those two things to get me where I am today. So representation has its place. It's not just putting black people in comic or queer people in comic for the sake of it. There's more to it. It's a psychological thing. It's so much, many other elements that we have not considered, but it's super important.
So now I was doing research, and you definitely have talked about is it Dwayne McDuffie? Dwayne McDuffie and Milestone, and how important they were in inspiring you to write and to start your own comics. So I definitely understand that. Static, Icon, Icon. See, I like Icon because Superman.
Right.
And look, Icon done rocked them a couple times.
Right. Yes.
So no, I definitely get that. I'm with you there. So with you guys being independent, do you think that gives you more freedom to take your characters in directions that nobody else might take theirs?
Absolutely. Yes, a lot more freedom, because there's still a game out there, and it's the industry, and you still gotta sort of kind of play by the rules, but you really don't. And you have the freedom to break those rules and make new ones that work for the game, or create an entirely different game yourself. So we're kind of doing this dance between playing the game, creating new rules to the game, and breaking the game entirely. It's like this tango, foxtrot, whatever you want to call it.
Okay. It's a different kind of dance.
Yeah, it's a different kind of dance, but it's allowing us to be able to do some exploration I don't think we'd be able to do if we were employed by Marvel, DC, Image Boom, whatever the case was.
Okay. So in reading some of your stuff, there are a lot of points that could definitely rub people the wrong way. You know, with the racial aspect, or with the sexuality, or even having a disabled character and whatnot. So do you ever worry that maybe you'll rub people the wrong way, or they'll be scared, to read it or whatnot?
No, I don't care either. And I don't care because how dare you take offense to somebody's reality? In no instance could I ever imagine black superheroes fighting off in the galaxy in space, but not paying attention to black police brutality in their own backyard. You know what I'm saying? Or superheroes paying attention to things that normal people deal with on a day-to-day basis, depending on who you are. And we as minorities, we were always kind of fighting for our lives. The moment we step out the house, the moment we get back in there, it's survival. And your superpowers don't change that, They help, certainly. But Tremor and Bolt won't be given the same welcome in somewhere like outside of Memphis, Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky, as Solace and Apex, because they're white. Right. And even then, Solace has some different difficulties because he's disabled, whereas Apex is able-bodied. So there are different things to consider with each character. And it is what it is. We just can't write out those realities. That's what makes up us as people, as black people, as disabled people, as Samoan, or whatever the case is. Our realities impact our story. And that's exactly what we got over here as well.
So with you guys, putting your heart and soul into the characters and the reality of the world as it is, how do you guys come up with the different story arcs for the characters?
It's a focus on the journey to what they want to become. I don't know how much of this I can say, because we haven't released a whole lot.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. We won't tell nobody. We won't tell nobody. Go ahead, man. Go ahead. We listen.
So we take a lot of inspiration not only from Western comics, Western superhero comics, but Eastern influences as well, anime and manga. And as of late, we've been tying a lot of shonen anime and a lot of those dynamics and systems into our universe. So with shonen anime, and those of you who know shonen more than I do, please forgive me. We're still learning and we're still studying the mechanics of manga and anime to make sure we get it right in our universe. But you have things like My Hero Academia, for instance, which is probably the most popular shonen anime that we got out right now. You also have things like Naruto, Dragon Ball Z. But mostly with My Hero Academia, it's the journey of the hero Midoriya, Deku, on his way to becoming the #1 superhero in the world. So it's a continuous story, it's a continuous journey from whether you're reading the manga, so from volume to volume to volume, you see the characters progress, or from the anime from season to season. We are watching and we are on this journey with Midoriya to becoming the #1 hero. Through that, he's learning about his powers. He's learning about how his powers affect his body. He's learning, so many different things about himself, about his peers, and things like that. So it's just continued progression, and it's just like how we live our lives from year to year, from day to day. Is that we're constantly learning about ourselves, learning about our gifts, how those things adapt and run up against different obstacles and things like that. So it's really just taking the human experience and tying it in with magic and some manga and some anime to get these characters here.
So with all these different influences and the way you go about doing different things, I gotta ask personally, do you have any anti-heroes? Because I'm a sucker for a good anti-hero. Like, cause you got like Vegeta with Dragon Ball Z, you got Hiei with Yu Yu Hakusho, and then you got like Hiro from Gundam Wing and stuff like. So you got the dude who like, depending on what day of the week he'll kill you, but the other days of the week he might help you. So do you have anybody like that? Just personally.
We do.
Wait, asking for a friend. So that's why
we actually do. So her name is Salat, and she's what we call our mother of magic. And Salat is a very interesting character because you get why she's doing what she's doing, but she just hasn't gone about it in the most ethical way. So her whole thing is about keeping the balance between normal and paranormal in order to protect what we call the Magi. And the Magi is kind of like the Force in Star Wars. And Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, Jersey Devil, those types of things, they've been real. It's just over time, her and her organization called the Jinn have snuffed those things out to keep the order in order. Civilizations, the Mayans, the Aztecs, Atlantis, Great Zimbabwe, those things have existed. It's just they got too out of hand with Magi, paranormal, and her organization has sank those civilizations and those kingdoms over time. So you understand, and rather you will understand why she's done what she's done. But like I said, it's not the most ethical thing. And you actually, there's quite a few opportunities where you empathize with this character and why she does what she does. And come to a point of understanding, even though it may not be the right thing to have done, you kind of get it. And there will be other characters like her as well. But that's probably our strongest anti-hero right now.
I did see some pics like what you were mentioning, like some of the things. Like I saw one about Paul Bunyan, Babe, and like how they were super influenced and whatnot. I was like, that's kind of nuts. And so okay, I love the fact that you guys started with John Henry because that is a great story. Man, John Henry, absolutely. I'm definitely looking forward to reading more of that. So, what made you choose him specifically?
Looking at just like the scope of mythologies, we oftentimes use a lot of Greek and Roman and pop culture and Norse as well. That's like the three main things. Really wanted something that was specific to American mythology, but also more importantly to African American mythology. You know, John Henry is, of course, he's part of American culture.
Yeah.
More specifically, Black culture.
Yes.
So, in looking at just that pantheon of, I don't want to call them gods, but tall tale legendary figures. Folklores.
Right.
It was interesting to take him, Paul Bunyan, Calamity Jane, and just elevate those concepts. Because they're concepts people already know of. And it was a way for us to be familiar with audiences using characters like that. You know, and John Henry, it's because I don't think John Henry has really gotten a fair shake out here. I mean, of course, they killed him off in his story very, very early on. The way the folklore goes, you know, he takes the final blow to the thing when he dies, and this, that, and the other. So we really wanted to explore some more with John Henry's story, really raise his profile as an iconic, tall tale folklore figure here in America, and really do something special and amazing. Because, I mean, he deserves it, you know? I mean, this is a character that's been around for years. And the fact that nobody has really done anything with him outside of Disney, and of course, DC has still, you know, John Henry Irons. But even that is like, you know, he's in the Superman family. He isn't given as much weight as Superman. We really wanted to put an emphasis on the character to really make him something special.
Yeah, I can understand that. So, speaking of DC, first question, big question. Of course, everybody wants to know. DC or Marvel?
Right now, it's going to have to be Marvel.
Okay. Now, is that just for the movies or is that for the comics?
That is for everything.
Okay.
Marvel was doing a bang-up job with Hickman's House of X, Powers of X, the relaunch of the X-Men.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. And X-Men were like my gateway drug into superheroes anyway. So to see them finally get like their fair shake after all this shit, gateway drug.
Kids don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. Okay, now that we did that.
Yeah, man. So that's been phenomenal. It's just, and also, Marvel has held the conversation all of 2019 very well. I just asked the team the other day, I said, is it me? Am I just biased or whatever? But has DC not been a part of the conversation? Like, where has DC been in movies, TV, with the exception of Young Justice and the Justice League comic that they got going on right now? Where has DC been?
Yeah.
And I don't know. And it maybe because a lot of my Twitter timeline, my feed is mostly like Marvel, but at the same time, Marvel gives us something to talk about. You know. So I don't want to be like I'm not a fanboy, but they haven't. I mean, so most of the MCU films have been decent. They're not all hits. Like, let's get that straight. Like, they're not all the greatest things,
right?
But most of them have been, and the execution has been great. The fact that they're pretty much the only ones to pull something off like this, I mean, keeping the attention of all these people for 10 years is nothing to like take away from it. It's been phenomenal.
And constantly build up.
Constantly build up, and then design something for the Disney Plus platform as well to keep a lot of those stories going, a lot of those characters going. Been phenomenal.
Yeah.
So right now, for me, it's definitely Marvel. They've just been keeping my interest, not as a fanboy, but as an engaged consumer of their content.
Okay. So I read a transcript of your interview. You were not critiquing, but you were basically reviewing Infinity, and you mentioned that General Okoye deserved her own movie.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't be mad at that at all. But what is it exactly that you feel is so great about her? Like she should get her own movie.
Excuse me. The fact that you had this dominating black woman who just wasn't a weapon, but had a range of emotions, had a belief system, a value system, did not waver from it, stood her ground, applied some grace to her grit, wisdom and wit, all those things. To see a black woman on screen with that many nuances and to be humanized in that way, along with the rest of the Dora Milaje, was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And I want to see more of it too.
Absolutely.
You know, there's some more story to tell there with Akuye, for certain. So I'm hoping that they find a place for her in the Disney Plus streaming service, or just the Dora Milaje as a whole.
Right.
Because that was, I think, one of the first times I've ever seen a black woman be given that much agency. And that's just not her. I mean, Queen Mother, Shuri, all those women were integral to the success of T'Challa being able to be the Black Panther and do what he needed to do.
Right.
You know, without those women, I don't know where he would be, to be quite honest.
He'd be Black Panther.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be a smooth win. Like they definitely give him.
Yeah.
I think they give him a lot of everything that he needs, like the protection, the safety, the guidance, the love, the intel, the intelligence, everything. So I agree with you, and I love the way that the whole Black Panther series has always made black women so prominent, so strong. Like they're not over domineering, they're not overly done, but at the same time, they're not a backup.
Right.
So I can definitely understand that. Like I think that would be a dope movie. Disney.
Please pay attention. Pay attention to what the people want.
But no, I actually heard somewhere, I think I read it, that they were coming out with another comic because they had a short, like kind of a mini series just for the Dora Milaje, and they even had one who went rogue and she went bad, and I was like, oh, that was actually a pretty interesting storyline too. Yeah, because like she fell in love with the king. So it was like, yeah, I'm gonna protect you, but I'm also gonna be your queen, right? He was like, no, that. So like she went rogue, she kind of felt like they were being done wrong, and like she just went to the dark side. And for them to have to go after one of their own, and for one of them to be going after them, it was dope. It was real dope. So yes, a series. So yes, definitely I can understand that. So with your comics, we talked about how surprisingly they start to look like their characters. Their creators. Yeah. On the next episode of Maury, so I know what it is. So you come up with the arcs, you come up with everything else. So you said before, because I couldn't imagine coming up with one storyline, one page, much less an entire universe. But you said before that when you're doing it, basically what you do is one day at a time. Pick a goal for one day, you accomplish that. How do you know what needs to be done that particular day?
That's a good question. Whatever's going to get us closer to getting the comics out, I guess you could say. Like I said, well, the question you asked earlier, the freedom that we have, it's a lot of freedom. And I think oftentimes you have to be aware of it getting away from you. Because you can get kind of trapped in the fact that you have so much freedom that you want to do everything, but then the content never gets out. So you always kind of end up in this cycle of just world building, character development, and it sounds good, but nobody's able to actually pick up the content and read it. So whatever is going to get us closest to getting the content out and making sure the content hits its mark when it does get out there is what we kind of focus on every day. Like for instance, today, before we set this up, I was writing out the magic and the power system in order for us to just incorporating more of that shonen anime and manga, getting that together. So when we actually go back and through the editorial for these stories, we can start incorporating these things. So everything's like on the same page. So it's just what's going to get us closer to getting the books out, pretty much.
So in keeping with that, one day at a time, like how do you get, with so many people on your staff, how do you get everybody working together on that same page, on that same one day at a time page?
I think it's super important to have a vision and have people believe in that vision and make what that vision is crystal clear every single day. And we also have it set up to where we, like I said, the freedom allows us to do whatever we want. So we're a little different. So every character you kind of see here, we have what are called character directors.
Right.
So everybody is in charge of a particular character. Now, if you brought a character in or you made a character, of course you're going to be character director of that character.
Naturally.
So what I ask all my character directors to do is to make sure that they're taking not only me, but make sure they have the intention to take your audience on a journey with this character. So they're developing pretty much the arcs and the books that this character needs to tell that complete story from beginning to end. That answers your question.
I think it does. So we were talking about something earlier, since we're talking about your staff now. So how do you find good people to work with? Like you've obviously got character directors. They might not be artists, but they can see. They have a vision in their head. So how do you find somebody that gives you just that? Like somebody who can marry what's in your head with what you want to see on the page. Like how do you do that?
I have been phenomenally blessed, to be quite honest with you, in finding people. Right now, Mayke is 100% volunteer. None of us get paid. Every single one of these people, through some means, asked me if they could be a part of this. And I look at that, and I look at how they're going to be a good fit into the culture that I have shaped. And I look at the intent behind the person. Of course, skill sets and talent takes a role in there.
Yeah.
You can always grow skills and talent. You can't fix intent. You can't fix who a person is. You know what I'm saying? Bad apple spoils a whole bunch. So those are the things that I consider. But when I'm looking for these people, I look to see if these people also have visions as well. If you're able to sell me on a character or a story that only lasts for one book, or if we can take this audience on a journey for 50, 75 years with this character. And that's what I truly look for. If you're able to visually concept a vision that this is where we're starting and this is where we're going to go, and you are committed to this character 120%. Right. That's how I can kind of know who I can position as a character director and who I cannot.
So kind of their passion for the character and their vision of where this could go, where it could lead, is what does it.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, that makes sense. So how do you know when you've got the right arc, the right story? Like you can come up with any story. I can come up with a story, and even if I've got a good vision on it, like so he's gonna do this and this and this and this, but it can be better. How do you know when you've got the right story arc? How do you know when you've really found something?
Mm-hmm. So we got a North Star at Mayke. It's part of our culture, and all of our stories, all of our characters are intended to do one of or more than three things. To heal,
Thanks for coming back to the Soul Say Life. Let's finish things up with Mayke creator Ed Williams. Alright guys, that's the first half of an incredible interview with Mr. Ed Williams of Mayke. Make sure that you come back. You will not be disappointed. So make sure that you subscribe, follow us, and check out his comics.